Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Cinema Podcast. I'm your host, Lev Fauci. With me, as always, is Samuel Parsons.
Hello.
And today's a very special episode, it's going to be our first ever interview. And with us today is Stephen Hunter. He played as Bombur in the Hobbit trilogy, acted as Bombur. So, how are you doing, Stephen?
Very good, and it's a great honour to be the very first guest. This isn't the first podcast I've done where I've been the first guest, so it's awesome. I'm very pleased to be here. Wrapped up warm, a bit cold in Sydney this morning.
Great. So how are we doing today, Samuel?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm actually kind of hot because London's very warm where I am, but. Well, it's now got a bit colder because it's midnight currently when I'm recording. But
Is this your one warm day for the year? Is it?
Pretty much. It's been cold for ages, and then unseasonably cold, and then suddenly it just it got very hot. But yeah.
I'm being grossly unfair because I was in London this time, maybe 3 years ago, around this time. And we were promoting a movie called Blue World Order, which I did with Billy Zane, Jack Thompson, Bruce Spence, who also featured in the Lord of the Rings stuff. And we flew over and we had this premiere at the Stratford Picture House. I think we grabbed a curry at King's Cross, and I actually went out there with Sylvester McCoy, who's a very good friend of mine.
Awesome. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, so I know
yes,
all about that.
Yes, and then so we went out there to this, and there wasn't a lot of people at the screening, to be fair, but it was part of the sci-fi festival over there, and then I caught up with a few people. I caught up with Adam Brown. I stayed the night with Jimmy. The first night I was there, James Nesbitt, had dinner with him, and then Sylvester goes, "Why didn't you come out and just come out for the day before you fly out?" Because I was flying about 10 o'clock that night, and of course now. I love London. That everything's so easy, the Heathrow Express and just getting around is fantastic. And so I went, and he lives out by Hampstead Heath, and he literally took me on a walking pub crawl, all through like the Spaniards in the Holy Bush, these really amazing places around Hampstead. And it was such a beautiful day. So I know I was taking the mickey out of the weather over there, but the weather was extraordinary. We had such a great time. And Sylvester, he walks with a bit of a cane. He was crossing rivers, on sticks, taking me through this.
Wow.
And he told me this amazing story, because that Hampstead Heath wasn't meant to be a heath. It was actually meant to be houses.
Yeah.
It was all meant to be houses out there, and they built this huge cathedral because they thought there was going to be thousands of people, and then someone died and they changed plans. So, but anyway, that's my London weather story.
Yeah.
Sorry to digress.
That's fine. Anything about awesome. Sylvester McCoy's great. As I said, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, so yeah.
Yeah, he's a very funny man. Do you know he plays the spoons?
Yes, I did know that. Yes,
that's pretty cool.
I have video of him playing the spoons. If you sort of hunt back on some of my social media pages and look at some of the videos, there is video of him playing the spoons in Wellington. He's very, very proficient.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So basically, we've got a few questions that we'd like to ask you, Stephen. And so first one is tell us a bit about what you do now. Where are you based, and just a bit about yourself in general.
Certainly. I guess when you do a movie like The Hobbit, and I guess one of the great privileges of doing a movie like that is that I'm always going to be Bombur, and it's such a, it's just such a great thing, and the people who support it are so passionate about Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and they love the character. So I still get to communicate with them. I don't do conventions as much anymore. Obviously, no one's doing conventions. I did a lot around Australia. I did Dragon Con in Atlanta. We did HobbitCon 3 times in Germany, and then went back for Magic Con. But that's sort of gone now. I've got a Patreon page, which is Stephen Hunter Patreon page, and I have people, we communicate, and I did a live Zoom literally 2 days ago with that, with some of the, the top tier people, and that's okay. So I keep in communication, and I'm doing a lot of cameo stuff. because the video messages, and you can actually do live calls on Cameo now. So I'm kind of that's sort of my fan stuff. They've also introduced fan clubs and stuff on Cameo. So it's there's about 1 million copycat companies that are doing that same kind of thing. The other side of my business is obviously my acting. So, like I've sort of been riding off the coattails of Bombur for quite some time, but my main passion is acting and doing other projects. So a couple of exciting projects that have sort of happened this year. One I can talk about, one I can't talk about.
Oh, okay.
And so there was a show called Wakefield that was on ABC over here, which I think is going to be on in the UK. There's a couple of UK Australian co-pros that are sort of currently, in the wind. So it would be nice to get on one of those. Can't really talk much about that one either. But there's a movie coming out called Ruby's Choice, which I did with Jane Seymour last year, and Jacqueline McKenzie in Australia. And we did like another version of, the old Children of the Corn movies. They've done about 3 or 4 of them. There's a new one. And we filmed that in the lockdown last year. It was the only production in action this time last year. There was one other show in Iceland, and the only 2 productions going in the world. So that's due for release somewhere soon. I'm not too sure if it's on a streaming service or whatever. And I'm constantly auditioning. And the other great thing that's happening in Australia is that everyone is in Australia from Hollywood. Obviously, Chris Hemsworth has been down here doing Thor.
Yeah.
All set photos are great.
Yeah, and Natalie Portman is here. Her husband did a movie called Carmen. Natalie Portman's doing a TV series. She's just about to start that. Chris Hemsworth's also got a deal with Netflix, and he's been producing the movie. A friend of mine's just finished one called Interceptor, and it was a directing debut for an author called Matthew Riley, very well-known Australian author. And that's a Netflix thing. Netflix have got a lot invested here. Marvel, because they're now, Fox is owned by Disney. I think that they're firmly in concert for at least the next 5 years and possibly longer. Melissa McCarthy's down here, Nicole Kidman, Matt Damon, Zac Efron. Like everyone's basically moved down here because of this, and they're all doing. All these people have got their own projects, so they're all doing them here. So for an actor, I had 4 auditions last week before. Wow. One of them was a recall for a job I've actually just about to start, and there's so much work. So most of the stuff I audition for is American. So it's, if people who are film crew come to Australia because there's so much work going on, and some states are finding it hard to do the work. So that's the second part. And the other part of my job is I'm a coach. So I'm an acting coach. So that's the other. I help people with if they've got self-tapes, because everything is either self-tape or Zoom recalls now at the moment, even though Australia is opened up. Some people are getting in rooms, and I help people if they want to get an agent, or just basically mentoring. And so kind of what I offer is my experience and my expertise and my skills, and because I've sort of been doing it for a while now, and I've worked on a lot of projects, and I guess I'm current. If you've ever been in any educational institutions and talking to tutors and that, they have to be current. They have to be up with what's happening, and I'm constantly auditioning. So I specialize in camera work and helping people. I worked with a young chap last week, and it was a movie, and it was a very special look, a very special ethnicity that they were looking for this film, and they're basically casting non-actors. So I helped him, and he decided that he was going to invest some money in a coach and go to the audition, and I reckon he would have blown them away. So yeah, that's kind of what I do, and I really get a lot of satisfaction out of that. And the one thing about being an actor is that most of the time you're not acting, so you need to have other streams of income and also things to do. So you're not just sitting around looking at your phone waiting for your agent to call, because quite often they don't. So that's what I get up to. And I'm a dad. I have a 10-year-old. So we live in a nice suburb in Sydney, and it's been life is good. And I did get back to New Zealand a few weeks ago to see my mother and my brother, because the borders are now open between New Zealand and Australia, the Trans-Tasman bubble. And, I keep in touch with some of my dwarf mates from time to time. Keep in touch with Graham and Adam and Jed, and it could be a few months before we talk, and when we do, it's kind of just like yesterday. So that's sort of me in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great that you still have it's cool that Australia is now the center of everything at the moment because of COVID and everything. So
and also New Zealand. Obviously, New Zealand's doing a lot as well. But
I mean, you got Taika, although he's currently in Australia, isn't he?
He is currently in Australia. I think they're about to wrap. If they haven't wrapped already, I think they're about to wrap this week. So so he'll be here. Then he'll be cutting that. So
awesome.
So the next question: how did you get the role of Bomber? Because it must have been quite a harsh auditioning process.
Yeah, well, actually, I based in Australia at the time, and as I still am. And I think a year before the auditions came up for The Hobbit, I got hold of my New Zealand agent, who I'd been with for a long time before I came to Australia. And I said, let's hook up again, because I hear they're doing The Hobbit and I really want to do it. So this was a year before. I remember because my mum and dad were over, and so she goes, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden, a few months later, they're auditioning, and they were casting here. I know, but I also knew that I was, at the time, my agent was they were a good agent, but it was kind of like a voice agent and an acting agent all in the same go. And I knew I'd struggle because I wasn't in that top echelon in Sydney to get an audition in Australia. So, I thought straight away I'll go through New Zealand because they want to cast Kiwis as well. So anyway, I got the audition. Didn't tell them I was based in Australia. My agent didn't either. And I flew over to New Zealand to do the audition, and then sort of had a few days with my mum and dad afterwards. And I remember going into the room, and I wore this had this outfit. A few years earlier, we do a great run in Sydney called the City to Surf, which is like 14 Ks from Hyde Park in Sydney to Bondi Beach. And a friend of mine and myself decided we were going to get dressed up as Braveheart warriors and do the paint and all kinds of stuff. And we made these smocks and all kinds of things. Yeah. It was ridiculous, running like in those. We had the proper running shoes, but all else, awesome. And as an aside, he decided he was going to go completely Scottish commando as well, which sort of made life interesting because he cut his kilt too short. That's a whole other story. Don't want to go there. But and I think one year we did the run and we stopped at this place in Double Bay called the Golden Sheaf for a midi, which is like a small glass of beer halfway round, which again probably wasn't the best thing to do when you're doing a 14K run. But anyway, we had this costume and this smock, and my friend convinced me to wear that, and we sort of cut it up a bit. So I went into the room and I had my jacket on and my hair was all over the place. And I took my jacket off, and I remember the look on the casting director's face. She was like, whoa. And I was like, either that's a good whoa or a bad whoa. But anyway, I ran with it. I did 2 takes. And the audition was actually for Gloin. All the dwarves did a generic audition for Gloin in a Scottish accent. So of course I talked to my Scottish friends and trained for a Scottish accent. I did 2 takes, and a friend of mine was working at the casting directors at the time. And I walked out and just collapsed on the ground. Actually, before I went, and I saw someone reading their script. And to me, knowing the lines is like a runner just putting his shoes on. That's the first thing you do before you even start working on a script. So I came out going, I think I've got a really good shot at this. And my teacher at the time, Billy from Sydney, he said, look, you'll be more prepared than pretty much everyone else that goes for this audition, because I've been doing the work. I've been doing Meisner training and stuff. So anyway, I walked out of there. I felt quite confident. I thought, surely there's how many dwarves were there? Like 12, 13 dwarves. I thought, surely there's got to be someone there and for me. But that was in June, and I didn't hear till September. So it was 3 months. Because usually you get recalls and there's 2nd, 3rd, 4th auditions for a job this big. But I just got a call, and it was late September, and it was you've been offered the role of Bomber. So that was just from one tape. So Pete obviously really liked it, and they were just probably trying to find a place for me. So that's how it went down.
That's great.
It was pretty crazy, and it was a good experience because I'd never met Pete before. And the reason I went to New Zealand is because I wanted to get in front of the casting director, because when you're doing an audition, a lot of people self-tape now, which is great, and most of the self-tapes I do pretty much in this room against that wall there. And I know the casting directors, but if you've never met a casting director, auditions are really like interviews. And, they'll cast you on if you look like the character, if you sound like the character, on your acting ability. They also really want to see who you are. They want to see what you bring personally to a role, like what you can add to the role, as opposed to just, try and play a certain way. And they also want to see what the person is like. And especially, I know with Pete and Fran, they wanted to have the right people. They wanted to hire good people. They wanted to hire people who weren't going to be problematic or, prima donnas. So getting in front of them was really important. And then, as I say, 3 months later, I got the gig, and then just hell broke loose. It was like we're moving to. Oh, and my partner was also 7 months pregnant at the time, so my daughter wasn't even born, and she's 10 now. So it was pretty chaotic, but in a good way. Well, for me, in a good way.
That's great. So, third question for today. So for me and Samuel, some of our favorite directors is Peter Jackson, and we like the way he films and takes shots and the way he tells his story. And during the filming process and behind the scenes and stuff, what was it like working with Peter Jackson during the actual filming of the Hobbit?
Look, I think the guy's a genius. He's quite private, on a personal level. But he had so much going on, and he had that whole movie in his head, because I don't know if you remember, but there were so many delays. There were union delays. MGM went bust. Guillermo left, and he came in late, and so he had to basically redesign to do it his way, because Guillermo's movie would have been totally different. So they were up against it. And I remember it was explained by the production designer, Dan Henner, who's just a wonderful, wonderful man. And he basically, I remember him explaining, it could have been him or Richard Taylor, making that movie was like laying down the tracks as the train was coming along. That was it was so last minute. And he admitted himself that he really they didn't give it enough time because of all the delays. But if he hadn't had the experience of doing Lord of the Rings, there's no way he would have been able to do it. But a lot of stuff, especially for the second movie, because you have to remember that we didn't realize it was going to be 3 movies until after we'd wrapped. It's going to be 3, and they doubled the amount of pickups. So we're meant to do 5 weeks pickups in 2013, and that's kind of. Maybe that's the same to do a normal, a standard normal film, to actually shoot the whole thing, if it's a small budget, But so they doubled it to 10 weeks to accommodate the third movie, and a lot of times we were doing stunt fighting, and he would go, look this side, look that side, and he didn't quite know where it was going to fit in, but he just knew he needed a lot of footage, so he just basically. As used to see in his words, just shoot the shit out of it, and and he'll put it together later. But and there was a tremendous amount of pressure. But he was great, and he just had such a vision. He's so passionate about making those. He's passionate about planes as well. He's like a big fan of planes, and he took us to see his collection of planes.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he was fun, and he just knew that it was in good hands with all the chaos that was happening, and he had to manage 13 dwarves, which is pretty much, we were all together in the trailer park all the time, and it was we were adults, but we're just managing school children basically. But it was fun. Yeah, he was great. He's I don't think anyone else could have pulled it off.
It's awesome.
So this is kind of a weird question, but was it hard filming all day with the really heavy fat suit and the makeup on? Or was no such thing as a weird question. But it was, and there's kind of a. I remember when we did our first test and we had all the gear on, and at one stage I had my fat suit. Then they had this spandex or lycra.
Yeah.
Sort of skin-colored suit over the top, and it was really tight, and the hands were really tight. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. It's such, and the thing is, my costume wasn't really heavy because it was all very light. It was lots of padding, but my clothing, my base clothing that I had at the start of the movie was quite light. So I don't think mine was as heavy as some of them, but all the big hands and all those kinds of things were, at the start, were quite restricting. But, it was, as we went along, we gave them feedback and they adjusted, like they gave us hands, like we had stunt hands, like we had the big fat hands, and then our stunt hands on the inside, they had mesh. So we could hold things. So, nice. They made adjustments, but having that makeup on and like, I've always been a bit fidgety anyway with my neck, but there's just something that just takes something out of you. And, we had this on for like 15, 16 hours a day. Quite often we'd get picked up at say 4:35, sometimes earlier, get in there, get the prosthetics on, be ready. We needed to be ready by 9. And then sometimes, Pete would just say, get everyone ready. And then he'd decide when he got on set. A lot of that had to do with, I guess the lack of preparation that he had. And quite often we'd just sit there until like 2, 3 in the afternoon. At the very start of the production, the first few weeks, there were days we'd get made up and then we'd get wrapped without even getting on set.
Wow. So the makeup process is like long. Like, how long do you think it would like generally? How long would it take for you to get into costume and everything?
I had 2 people. I had 2 people working on me at one time, and that's just doing the prosthetics. And it took to start in about 2.5 hours, and then they got it down to about an hour and a half. And then we go have breakfast with our big bald heads, with no padding on, and our big, Ugg boots and we'd all our bald headed dwarves would go and have breakfast, and then we'd get the hair put on after breakfast.
Okay.
So they minimized, us eating with all the hair on.
Yep.
And then after that, we'd go back to our trailers, and then they'd start to dress us and put all the fat suit on. And then particularly for me, I had the big cheese of the stomach. That would be the last thing that would go on just before we walked on set, because it was massive. And we also wore underneath all our costumes, we had our these like cool vests that we'd wear, like the racing drivers wear, and they'd plug in a cool pack. Because if we didn't have that, we'd literally die. So we'd just overheat.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So another question. So what was the the atmosphere and the vibe like on set? Was it like a spontaneous thing? Was it more of a I don't know, like you had to do it to the script, or also was it like a fun environment to be in?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. We called the script the rainbow script because it kept changing, and then they had all these different colors, all these different, and they'd have double salmon, or because you usually get like blue. And I've done a job recently. You get blue revisions, green revisions, yellow revisions, red revisions, but they had to go through the whole rainbow of colors because there were so many, and it used to change, and it used to change when you're on set. It didn't affect us as much, well, especially not me, because I didn't have any dialogue. But quite often for us, we were kind of like, some days it'd be like featured extras. And I've done a lot of commercials, and commercials are very short, and you've got a short time to do something, and it's like one action or one little beat, and you just do that over and over and over again. So quite often our jobs, as not the leads, was just to do, go from there to there. And we'd add our own things. There was one time in Bag End where I had to walk from the pantry while they were having a conversation with Thorin and Barlin. I had to walk from the pantry, and Biffa was standing there. And I just added a character thing, whereas I just sort of put my hand on his shoulder just to make sure he was okay before I left. And that was just to make a connection, and it added something to the scene, but I just did the same every single time. But because a lot of us weren't the main focus of the action, like Martin or Ian, whenever they were there, or Richard or Ken, were the main focus, they were able to give a lot of different takes, and they'll try different things, because as a director, you want your lead actors to give you a few options. So when you get in the cutting room, you've got a few things to work with. But for us, it was for me, from my perspective, I was just like A to B, just do the same thing, make a choice. But once I've made it, I do it. But it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of joke telling, especially when Martin was around, because Martin's a real practical joker, and he's very intelligent, and he's very, very funny. He's very dry. He can be quite cutting in a very funny way. It's a very, because New Zealanders are very much like the British with a sense of humor. You take the piss out of people, and there was a lot of that going on. So, but it was like school, and and we'd gang up on people, Mark Hadlow in particular, because he was someone that, and I love Mark. He's just such a beautiful man, and I love all the guys I work with. But quite often, if you played a joke on him, he'd get really upset, and he'd take it personally. And of course, that's the worst thing to do, because that people are going to keep doing it. So, some call it bullying. Maybe it was. I don't know. I mean, but it was all done in jest. And so, but it really did have that whole dynamic of the schoolyard. And most of the time we were just hanging around the trailer park. We had all had caravans, and then there were covers, like there's these marquee covers in between the caravans, because the paparazzi were up on the hill and they didn't want to reveal what we looked like. So we just used to muck around, have coffees. I got a PlayStation quite early on, and the only game I ever played was FIFA, and I think it was FIFA 12 back then. And quite often it was mainly myself, Aidan Turner and Dino Gorman, who we'd have this like triangular tournament. So we'd spend hours doing that. Martin came in a couple of times, he had a game, he was okay. Orlando came in, he came once, he got beaten, he never came back. There was but we kind of had our regular, and John Callan used to play classical music, but it took him like 8 or 9 months to realize that there was a switch where the speakers can go on the inside of your caravan and not the outside. And so everyone was listening to his classical music, which caused a bit of a stir. So it was lots of fun. We had so much fun. And because of that, like the bond with these guys, it's just something that'll never be broken.
That's amazing. So
did you take any props from set, including those weapons maybe that you showed us earlier?
Yes, I didn't take any. I got given some. These were, I mean, I don't know if you can see, there's a picture up there as well, that big picture of Bombur.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was given to us. And there's another one here. I'll just look on, because I like you were saying with your machine, I'm just going to, I can't really, you can see that picture.
Oh yeah, yep.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
So, and that was
cool.
a special picture that we got given. We also got given the very first Lego figure of our characters.
Cool.
That was at
that's
Wrap.
awesome.
And since then, I think I got the Barrel Ride Lego. I think we bought that. And so my daughter's been playing, with all the Lego. But of course, now all our Hobbit Lego characters are mixed in with Harry Potter and Lego friends. So,
that's the sadness of Lego.
Oh,
so
that is cool.
Yeah.
And
Wow,
have a look at the
detailed.
detail.
Yeah.
And I think it's bone.
Wow.
And it's not that sharp. I mean, I wouldn't sort of purposely stab anyone with it, because that would be not good. But if you look at this, it's like it's leather on the outside, but on the inside is wood, and that's traditionally what sheaths were made of. Because if it was all leather, then it's gonna go straight through it. So it's wood in the inside which holds it. So that's a cooking knife.
Yeah,
I don't think I fought much with that. I think I might have a cleaver in that one, and of course the other one, which is the most famous, which I do get out at parties, and we have neighbours. Well, I discovered about a year ago that a neighbour next door, who's I think almost 17 now, was a huge Hobbit fan. And then one day around Christmas, I just casually dragged out my weaponry, and it just blew his head off. So this is the ladle.
Yeah,
oh, cool.
The spoon.
The spoon of destiny. So it's cool. Obviously you can see the dents from various orc sacrifices. So great for fighting orcs, and also for soups and casseroles. It's very, very handy. So,
maybe orc soup and casserole. You could eat.
There we go.
Probably wouldn't taste very nice.
Yeah, I wouldn't go there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was really cool.
Yeah, I saw in the making of The Hobbit that each cast member got their own gift or whatever to take back.
Yeah, I think Graham's got us. Everyone's got their weapons. They all got their weapons, and these are the heavyweight versions, like the ones that we carried around, like this one. this is.
And the others were more like lightweight.
They were. It was mainly this bit was lightweight, and that was wood. And I remember there was a time just before we saw Rivendell, which was a green screen. We came out. I think we'd escaped. There was that scene 88, which we all laugh about. I've even got a T-shirt that says scene 88. Actually, I'm going to find it. It was scene 88 when we were running from the Wargs. I think it started off when. Was it Radagast had the rabbits?
Yes.
And it was the Warg chase. And we took scene 88. We spent weeks filming that. And we got this made.
Oh yeah. That's
that is so cool.
The Middle Earth Fun Run, sponsored by scene 88.
Yeah.
And so that one was just after that. I think we went down a ravine, and then we did a stunt with came with an arrow, and I think that's when the elves turned up because that's with the arrows. And then we went through to Rivendell, and we had to go through this cavern, and we had to squeeze through. And I remember at the time we went to Pete goes action, and I couldn't get through because of that. And they literally had to cut it to about here. So I could actually, so I could get through, because I couldn't move walls. And he's like, "Oh, we'll just cut it." So, that was just some of the things that happened from time to time. But they had a few versions of them, so it didn't really matter, and you'd never notice.
Yeah,
awesome.
So another question we'd like to ask you is out of the entire filming of the movies, what was the best thing about acting in them? What would you say was most enjoyable?
I think honestly is just making the friends that I made, because I've just got lifelong friends now, and some of them I don't talk to a lot, or we don't catch up with a lot, but when we did all the HobbitCon conventions in Germany, just seeing those guys again. Mark Hadlow and Jed Brophy were in Sydney a couple of years ago. And, I just said, I'll take you for a bit of a tour around the eastern suburbs beaches. And I spent the day with them. And honestly, it was just like we'd been together yesterday. And, you have that, it's interesting, just an aside, since we've had all the lockdowns, we had lockdowns this time last year. And we all got to communicate with our neighbours through newsletters and, and we ended up, after the lockdowns, we had street parties. And, once you get that level of connectedness with people, it'll never go away. So to have 2 years with all these guys and just living in each other's pockets, and the friendships that honestly, that's the best part. I mean, it's great being Bomber. We got to go to London. We got to stay at Claridge's, which at that time I didn't even know what Claridge's was. So we got to stay there. We went to New York, stayed at the Waldorf Astoria. We had the big 600-meter red carpet in Wellington. We had the big tours. We're actually on a this is all material stuff, right? I mean, because honestly, it's all about the people I've met. But when we flew from New York to London, we were on the same flight as One Direction. So we weren't in the very pointy end of the plane. They were. We were in sort of like the business area on BA, and it was really nice, because it had been such a long couple of weeks. And we went to London, for the big London premiere to meet the Prince. We met Prince William, which was a real treat. He was lovely. And we, but I remember we got out, and we were getting our bags, and we knew they were there. We'd seen them, and then we could hear the screaming like in the distance, because we all went through a secret back entrance, and we were like, I said to the guys, we need to get our stuff and we need to go right now. We don't want to get caught up. And as we walked out with all our stuff, all these young girls were screaming, and we were like, not for us. But the crazy thing was, I don't know if you've seen them, but if you see any TV shows or docos or behind the scenes stuff with all these, famous people, they sometimes, especially in the UK, they go on these big Mercedes silver vans. That's how they get them from the airport, and they pick them up. And so they were all waiting for us. But the problem is that they had them for us and they had them for One Direction. And no one knew who was meant to be where. So we got luggage. We had a big teddy bear or a big lion or something like that from one of the guys. And then we had one poor chap who jumped into our van, and we were like, sorry, bro, this is the wrong van. I think it was Zach, the dark-haired chap, and we were had to go, sorry, bro, this is it. And then they had to race them, and then all the publicity people were. I mean, it was ridiculous, really. It was just totally ridiculous. And for that moment, I felt really sorry for these guys because they were young guys. It was back in 2012. And they were just being thrown around, and they were so stressed out, and they were getting in the wrong place. And it was just it must have been really overwhelming for them. I mean, we thought it was hilarious. We're like older. We know we're nowhere near as famous as any of these guys. And it was like it was a bit of a laugh. Like when that's our story. We almost kidnapped a direction. We had one of them in our car. So
he would have been going in the wrong direction if he'd have taken.
Yay! There we go. Point for you. Yeah, so I mean, those kinds of experiences, I don't think we'll ever have again. Going to London, meeting the Prince, doing all that kind of fancy stuff, and it was exciting. It was fun, but the long-term thing of having those friendships is definitely the best thing that we've had, and we had such a great time.
Awesome. Okay, so can you give 3 just general acting tips to people who want to get better at acting?
Sure. If you want to be an actor, persistence, never stop.
Right.
When I wanted to acting, actually, in anything that I've really done, especially with my acting, I look at the ladder, and at the top of the ladder is like your main goal, and you just do little bits at a time. You just keep going, and if it's something you really want to do, then you just keep going. I think it's persistence.
Yeah.
Work hard. With working hard, again, it's like, what do I need to do? Identifying the areas that need development. And I've still got areas that need developing in my acting. Like it's a constant. And I think maybe before that, I was also asking the question of, why do I want to be an actor? Because a lot of people want to be an actor for the fame. They want to be an actor for whatever reason, to feel good about themselves. I mean, that's probably why I started as an actor when I was a kid. I wanted to be in the cool group, or I wanted to be liked. And I think that does get people into the industry. But it's really asking that question about, is this something that really fires you up and that you're really passionate about? And yeah, like really do, you just need to do the work. It takes a while. But that, and with consistency, I think. And I think that the last thing is probably just really enjoy the journey of becoming an actor. Yeah. Because if you're acting, if you're making your own short films on your phone, or you're doing amateur theatre, you're an actor. That's what you're doing. You're an actor. And, being a professional actor just means you get paid for it, right? So you can call yourself a professional actor. Just like the other day, I did a voiceover in my booth, and they wanted me to do a rap for this commercial. So because I got paid to do a rap, I'm now a professional rap artist. That's just the way it is. So, but yeah, I think like really enjoy it, because, I guess the cold truth is that a lot of people who really want to be actors don't become actors, because it's a very tough industry to break into. Yeah. And like, there's nowhere to get, and so if you do it because you really love it and you really enjoy it, then naturally you're going to work harder. And then the old saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Yeah. And you're going to do the work you need to do. And then if you just keep doing it, things will happen from that. But I just think, because if you spend too many years chasing after something that might not happen, it's just I just don't think it's a healthy way of being. Just really enjoy it and do the work. And like nowadays, guys of your age, man, the fact that you guys are doing a podcast now, and we've got videos and we've got mic setups. I'm very, very excited to announce this is a world exclusive that I've just purchased an iPhone 12 Pro Max, which I'm very, very, very happy about.
Yes.
And I'm going to use that for self tapes. It's got night vision. It's got depth of field, and I can make stuff with that. But when I was a kid, you had to buy a video camera, like a really expensive video camera. Whereas now you got a phone, you can tell stories. So everything is available for people who want to do it. So and I guess with the persistency, just one last thing is like never let anyone tell you can't.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, if you find a way, but it does take work.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess that'd be it for starting out.
Awesome. That's great. So final question. So out of like all of the like cinematic universes, or like out of all movie franchises and series and things,
Star Wars.
Like, okay. yeah.
I would be up for seeing you in Star Wars, absolutely.
If you could act in some kind of big franchise other than Middle Earth, what would be one that you would be passionate about?
Well, Star Wars would be it, but I may have missed the boat for the main Star Wars one. But I was 8 years old when I saw the first Star Wars in 1977, and it just stuck with me. And there's so much debate about all the new ones and the prequels, but I didn't say I loved the prequels, but I watched them and I took them in. The new ones, I loved all of them because it's Star Wars, and really it was so subjective as to what could happen with all those. But to be part of Star Wars would just be an absolute dream. I guess the other one is Marvel, because Marvel is it right now. So to be in a Marvel movie, that would be pretty awesome as well.
Awesome.
So so we'll see what happens, eh?
Yeah. And just like a last quick one. Are there any upcoming projects that you'll be in that we could maybe review if there's a title?
Well, I think Children of the Corn is one that that'll be coming out, and it's kind of like a prequel, if anything. There are quite a few Children of the Corn movies, and it's basically they're based on the Stephen King short story. Yeah. So this is the same. It's another adaptation of a short story, but of course people just think it's a prequel or a sequel, but it's just adapting the source material. But if anything, it's probably the events that happened before the original, which is in the 80s. So that'll be pretty exciting. There's some stuff that's on at the moment. There's a crazy movie, I think it's on in the UK at the moment, called Two Heads Creek, which is a comedy horror, which was based in Australia. May or may not contain cannibalism, but it's pretty funny. And it's a bit of a piss take on Australia's immigration policy as well. So it was one of those ones that was a bit crazy that could have landed really badly, but it really works. It was written by a guy called Jordan Waller. He's a British actor and writer. He was in The Finest Hour and all that kind of stuff. So he's done a lot of great work. I think that's out at the moment. I also did I think it's on Amazon maybe, Escape from Pretoria.
I haven't seen it, but I saw about it with Daniel Radcliffe, right?
Yeah. So I play his father Peter in that, and so I got to work with Dan for a couple of days, and lovely chap, amazing. Did the read through with him. Unfortunately, the role originally in the script was a lot bigger. In the end, I only sort of, you can see me maybe once, but that the thing. Well, the thing you get used to is that it's not about you. And usually when you get cut, it's just to do with the story. Like, does this scene forward the story, or have we said what we've needed to say elsewhere? And that was the case with this role. But so that's out. And there's some exciting things coming, maybe in a few months' time, which I can't talk about. And also, I'm about to do a TV series, which I can't talk about either. But there's a lot of work. And there's a lot of stuff auditioning. They're about to start rolling on the Joe Exotic TV series, which is starring and produced by Kate McKinnon. She was in Ghostbusters and Saturday Night Live, and just incredible talent. So hopefully you'll see me in a few US productions coming up, because there's a lot here. So that's what's coming up. I wish I could tell you more about some of these things, but I can't just yet.
All right. Well, that's great. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. I'm very impressed. I think you guys are going to do really well. And I really love the name. I think it's such a good, simple name, and it says everything about what you're trying to do. Your time management is impeccable. It's 5 minutes to 10 o'clock at my time. I think you guys are doing well, and hit me up, and I might be able to put you onto some of the other boys. I'm sure they'll be keen to chat. I know Jed's always keen to chat. John Callan's always keen to chat. So I'll hook you up with them. And well done, fellas. Pleasure to be the first guest.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's been great to have you. Okay, so thank you very much, Stephen, for that interview. That was really awesome. I hope you enjoyed it, listeners/viewers, if you're looking at this on YouTube. If you are looking at it on YouTube, then you'll be surprised to know this is our first video on the channel. We haven't posted anything else on it before, but we hopefully will now. I think we're planning to put every podcast episode onto the channel now, which is cool. So if you would like to see us more, then you can watch them on YouTube. This will also be on Spotify and all the other podcast apps. So feel free to subscribe or follow or whatever it's called these days on any podcast app. Also, Stephen Hunter, he has the social.
Check out his cameo in the description and in the information.
And in his Patreon.
And his Patreon. They'll be linked in the description and in the info button on YouTube and all Spotify things. Check out his cameo and his Patreon links. Also, if you enjoyed the episode, feel free to follow us on Instagram at @the_cinema podcast and join the Discord server. Both of those are linked in the description of everything. So
yes.
It from me and Samuel.
Yes,
basically.
Thank you very, very much. So have a great week and watch movies.
Watch movies.